Meteorologist Tucker Antico here. Hope you're having a great weekend and ready for some pretty intense weather in a couple different parts of the country this week. Right to the right of me here, you can see the Pineapple Express, as we call it, impacting the West Coast. We're going to dive into what that means and how it will have implications across the country this week, too. We're going to dive into the forecast, break down everything you need to know and that you're not going to find anywhere else here. So stay tuned as we dive into the week ahead. Our forecast starts out west. Actually, in the Pacific, we have what's called the Pineapple Express. That is actually the funny name for an atmospheric river with a train of moisture that begins around Hawaii and goes all the way to the west coast. And you can see that right here circled in yellow. That's your transport of moisture, and you can see it's about 1,000 miles long. And we're going to see that ride into the west coast here as we go through the weekend and into the week. In fact, this is going to continue, this train of moisture out here, for the better half of the weekend and first half of the week. And we're going to continue to see this into even Wednesday as that moisture continues to crash into the west coast. That's going to dump some significant rain, some flooding. And we're going to take a look closer to the surface at the impacts that's going to have on our weather and the amount of rain and snow that's going to fall out there too. So here's our simulated radar as we head through the back half of the weekend and through the upcoming week. This will be mainly February 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And you'll see here on our radar that we're going to see that narrow plume of moisture, and you can see it really clearly here, that fire hose of moisture here impacting much of California, but especially spreading out through the Rockies as well. This will be falling as rain in the lower elevations and snow in the higher elevations here, dropping a ton of each across the region. And here we are on Monday, even into Tuesday and Wednesday as well. You're still seeing rainfall across a good chunk of the western U.S., but this is partially beneficial rain. As you can see, this will end up reaching Southern California as it slowly drifts south, and that's going to help to limit that wildfire risk that we've been seeing. We're going to get to this in just a moment, too, and we'll give you a sneak peek right here. You can see this system ends up culminating in what will be potentially a major winter weather event in the Northeast, and that's something that we're going to be keeping a close eye on. Stay tuned because we're going to jump into that later in the video. Let me show you amounts that we're talking about, though, in terms of rain and snow, but we're going to start with precipitation, which you can translate to rain here for our purpose here. And what you're seeing as you go through the weekend and into the start of the week, we're looking at those gold colors indicating amounts between about 6 and 12 inches of rainfall. This is just by the time we get to Monday. Red colors indicating about 3 to 5 inches of rainfall, and you're going to see by the time we get to Tuesday and Wednesday, those gold colors really spread out across Northern California, and that's indicating what will be widespread 6 to 12 inch rainfall amounts, up to a foot, in fact, in many of our mountains. The Sierra Nevadas are going to get crushed by heavy rainfall. That's going to cause some flooding, and those amounts are going to be pretty significant, even down to the LA area. Like I said, at least an inch of rain, if not closer to 2, which helps to limit that wildfire threat, but an immense amount of rainfall across the West Coast, even into northern locations, Oregon, at least southern Oregon and western Oregon, going to see a ton of rain with this as well. And we can even take a look a little farther out and get an idea of how much rain is going to fall across the region. And like I said, we're looking at high amounts of rainfall through not just California, but parts of Oregon, even into Idaho, Wyoming, in Montana. In fact, that heavy plume of moisture will spread out. We're talking about total precip amounts that are going to be in the order of at least 2 inches, if not closer to 4 to 6 in many spots. That includes the northern Rockies too, and you better believe that a lot of that will fall as snow, which we'll take a look at here, the snowfall amounts right now. And here it is, that snowfall forecast. You can see those areas highlighted once again, indicating places that'll be seeing on the order of about 3 or more feet of snow. You can see that in the orange colors through the Sierra Nevadas, even into the northern Rockies. That's 3 feet at least, if not more. So we're talking about significant snowfall. Northern California, we were looking at there on the order of 6 to 18 inches of rainfall, and that's going to be a lot of precipitation across the board, no matter where you are. Will cause some flooding closer to the coastline. Likely some good ski conditions in the northern or higher elevations. Generally 6,500 feet or up, we'll see that rain become snow, but that's a lot of areas that will just see rainfall straight up. So it really depends on where you are, but expect heavy precipitation and flooding across a good chunk of the west. And this will be the most impactful storm system of the week in the U.S., but let's take a look farther east where we're expecting other impactful weather as well. Now, as we move later into the week, we're watching a potential winter storm that would impact much of the Northeast. And this one is important to watch because we're not talking about a ton of snow per se, but actually ice is the main concern with this. And we're going to move this forward now through Wednesday into Thursday. You're seeing our storm system move in here. Anywhere you're seeing those red and pink colors, that would be potential ice accretion. And while there will be some snow on the front end of this is where the air is coldest. That's not going to be a ton of snow. It's the ice that's the bigger concern, at least for me. Ice is always the most concerning because it's hard to remove ice and it can be sneaky too. It'll look like rain perhaps, but it'll actually be a really hazardous road and sidewalk conditions too to anyone walking around. That's because we have cold air that's going to sneak underneath warm air, a very shallow layer. So rain will be falling, but it'll hit the ground and freeze because it reaches that colder air. And this could be a problem for almost the entire Northeast, including the Mid-Atlantic into New England here as we move into Thursday morning. That's the other concern with this, is that it could impact that morning commute as well. And you'll see as we get later into Thursday, this could be mainly a snow event once we get to the only far north and eastern portions of New England. It is likely to warm a lot in many of these areas that see ice initially in the morning thanks to a warm front that moves through, but this could really be hazardous weather as we get into Thursday morning and something that we need to watch closely. I'll also show you the potential for ice accumulation here, ice accretion as we say, how much is going to freeze and stack up. And you can see as we head into your Thursday morning, amounts generally on the lighter side, but it doesn't take that much to cause some big problems. Anywhere you're seeing those pink colors, that indicates 1/10 of an inch of ice. Generally speaking, or more, and you can see that across Pennsylvania, into upstate New York, even into portions of Massachusetts. Even where you're seeing those gray colors, that is a glaze of ice. It will melt quickly, but can cause problems in the short term. And there is the potential for more in any of those places outlined in gray. It's just a matter of how much cold air sneaks in before that precip gets in. And we'll be watching this closely as it could have some major impacts on the weather later in the week, especially in the Northeast. And a lot of this moisture is actually going to be passed along from that atmospheric river we were just talking about that'll impact the western U.S. as well. To wrap this up, wanted to show you how active this weather pattern remains, and we can get an idea of the temperature swings. And this tells you a lot about how active this air mass is going to be, this weather pattern is going to be, because these air masses, they're going to continue to really stay churning through the beginning of February here. We start the week off with warmer than average temperatures across much of the central U.S. here. We're going to change that color to black, though, as we highlight things going forward. And as we get later into the month, that warmer air, it's really going to go back and forth. You can see it's sort of a battle between the colder and warmer air, those blue and orange colors, through the first week of the month. But as we get into the second week of February, what you're going to see is this colder air mass begins to dive into the country. And this will open the door up in the second week of February for the potential at some wintry weather across much of the eastern U.S. before perhaps a warmer second half of the month. But here we are. As we get into the second week of February, colder air takes over the majority of the country, at least for a time. And this is going to be the window of time when we need to keep an eye out for what may be some more active weather. Like I said, though, here we are through the middle of the month. But I do believe towards the end of the month, we're going to see warm air begin to undercut this again and ride back up the East Coast. So the window of time to watch if you are in the East will be roughly February 11th through February 17th before that pattern begins to break down again. And as we stay active this month, you can expect a lot of temperature swings and the potential for many storm systems over the course of at least the next couple of weeks. So we'll wrap up our forecast here. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. We're going to keep you ahead of all the latest weather information. You can, of course, trust the weather you're getting here. I'm a degree meteorologist and also giving you some of the information that you're not going to see on TV. So make sure to keep yourself involved with our forecasts. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I'm happy to answer any questions, give any personal weather forecasts you want. And we'll be back here in a couple of days with our next update on that storm coming to the Northeast and beyond.